What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of Player Ratings as Spurs drew 1-1 with Sporting yesterday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, which takes us into the last game of the group stage to see if we can seal our fate into the next round. I mean, good news is that it is in our own hands still, so we're not relying on any other teams. All we need to do is get that point out in Marseille, and we are through into the next round. But let's start off with Hugo Lloris in the player rating. 7s all round from us. And I think that he was fairly untested, to be honest, throughout the game. He had those 2 really good saves in the latter stages when Lisbon broke on us when we were really on top. But apart from that, I don't think he could have done better for the goal. He was at full stretch and it was right into the corner of the net. I know some people are blaming him for that, but I'm not going to do that. And I think it was a fairly competent display, to be honest. I don't remember much things he did wrong. I mean, there was that one moment where he came rushing out and we could have suffered from it. But as you say, it was offside. So I think Lloris had a fairly good game yesterday.
Yeah, and if it wasn't for him, it could have been 2-0 to Sporting on a couple of occasions. So you've got to give him credit for that. I guess from the first goal's point of view, when you see a goal go in like that on a daisy cutter from range, you always got to have to question the keeper because you've got to think because it wasn't like it was that had so much power on it that he couldn't see it. A tiny bit, but to be fair, it was right in the corner, so it did go off the side netting. So I'm not going to put him down too much, although he'll probably look back and then think maybe on another day he could have got it, but he didn't get it this time. But it wasn't like a terrible error or anything like that. And I think he deserves credit for keeping it at 1-0, and then obviously we nearly won the game, so he nearly won us in a way. Could have won us points, but yeah, is what it is. Yeah.
Let's move on to Cuti Romero. Sim gives him an 8. I gave him a 7, and I thought it was a really strong display from Romero. I mean, he played up front for a majority of the game. He was literally in a central position up front for a lot of the game. But in terms of his defensive work, he was being really aggressive, being really proactive. In the first half, where you couldn't really pick out a performer, I thought him and Bentancur really, outshone the team, that's for sure. In the second half, I thought he was doing a really good job trying to spur the team forward and making those little 1-2s and him darting all the way up the pitch. And it was a really good display from Romero.
Yeah, and I was a bit disappointed he didn't get a bit closer to Marcus Edwards from the goal. Yeah. That was pretty much it. Other than that, I thought he was really aggressive, much better than his last performance against Man United. He wasn't very good in that game. Maybe he needed that game rest to just recuperate, because he definitely seemed a lot sharper, a lot more aggressive, winning the ball back on many occasions. And second half, he was helping us force the issue a bit. So definitely a much improved display from Moura. I was happy with him in this one.
Yeah, let's move on to his partner in Eric Dyer. Sim gave us a 6. I gave him a 5. Obviously, you got to talk about the goal, because he went out to chase the ball and got caught in no man's land, and he was nowhere to be seen for the goal. So that's a down point. I thought apart from that, he defended okay as a whole. He was being troubled a few times, but where the conversations really start is, you got to give him credit for being in those positions, but he had 3 or 4 chances to score a goal. 1 early on in the second half, 3 in the later stages of the second half as well, and 2 of them were point blank range, and you've got to finish them off. And if he finishes one of those off, you're talking about Spurs into the next round of the Champions League.
Yeah, frustrating. I mean, it's weird to criticise the defender for not scoring, but when you have the chances he did, you can only say that he should have scored them, especially the one from 2. I mean, doesn't really have an excuse for missing either of those chances. Gilt edge opportunities. One from the Son free kick, brilliant cross in, and poor from him to miss it. And then one from Longley's cutback, again, right, gilt edge. He had also a front post header from a corner, which was a nice flick, but onto the top of the net. And then he had another swivel volley, all in the second half. He was actually our most shots. Second half, I was really happy with him, actually. I thought he was really aggressive defensively, and it was helping us suffocate Sporting and allowing us
sitting on the halfway line,
winning headers and just making sure we retain possession. So that was good. But yeah, defensively in the first half he wasn't particularly great, and obviously those chances get him some marks down, so that's why I only gave him a 6.
Yeah, I mean, it's important for him to have a second half like that, because I think he's been struggling a bit last couple of games, it looks like, with confidence or lacking in quality the last couple of games. So hopefully that second half can bring him back to the levels he was at last season. But let's move on to Ben Davies, the last of the back 3. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 5. And I felt like they were targeting him a bit down that side with Porro and Marcus Edwards. They were really giving him a torrid time for a lot of it. But he did stand up to the challenge somewhat, but I thought he was struggling at times. And I just didn't think it was a great performance, to be honest, from Davis.
Yeah, it was fairly average. I thought he wasn't. He got forward a few times without doing much, without really like getting in behind Sporting a few times. He was trying to link up with Perisic and it didn't really work. Defensively, down his side, I thought it was okay. I thought they actually really started to threaten on the counter once he went off and once Longley came on. For the last 10 minutes, they had a couple of chances, but obviously they didn't score, so that was good. But I thought he was just average. It wasn't nothing special about Davis apart from getting forward on a couple of occasions.
Let's move on to Matt Doherty, right wing back. Sam gives him a 5. I gave him a 4. And I thought it was a pretty anonymous display from Doherty, to be honest. I mean, he was tasked with that, very important right wing back role to get up and down the pitch, and I don't think he impacted anything going forward or defensively, to be honest. Literally an anonymous display apart from that one chance he's had where he could have scored from.
Yeah, he didn't struggle to really link up with Lucas. I think Lucas is also quite culpable for that, for the lack of link up between the two. But I thought he didn't really get involved offensively, was struggling to get involved in the game. But he had that one chance. It was a good strike, to be fair. Controlled it, left-footed strike, and a good save at the near post from Adnan, who was having a good game at the time and was making a few saves. He also had a shot from 25 yards following a flurry of other shots which went over the bar. But other than that, didn't really get into the box too much. As considering the amount of times Perisic was getting crosses in, you expect to see Doherty in there a bit more, and he wasn't really involved, and probably rightly taken off when he was.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the midfield general. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, 7s all round. Was very good to see him back in the side after missing out last game. But didn't start the game particularly well. I thought he was not great in that first half whatsoever. He was letting the game pass him by. Passing was pretty poor, and he was getting the midfield was getting a bit dominated, or he was in the first half. But second half, I think it all started with a driving run that he made in that second half, going through the heart of their midfield, heart of their defence, and it kind of like sparked something within him, and he started to really dominate that midfield, all action display, and I thought he drove the team on where we really should have got that second goal.
Yeah, I thought he ended the game so strongly. I was so impressed, and it was just a weird one because I thought he was struggling throughout the game through fatigue, and I thought, okay, we just need to get him off because he seems to be leggy and tired and not getting near people. But he ended the game really strongly for the last half an hour, dribbling past people, getting stuck in, getting closer, being more aggressive against his opponents, and providing quality. So it couldn't have been a fatigue thing if he was ending the game, or he just somehow found some energy from somewhere to spur him on. And I was really happy with how he ended the game. I thought he was probably one of our better players in the last 20 minutes, but for the first part of the game, he did struggle. And that can't be ignored. So that's why I gave him 7.
Yeah. Let's move on to Rodrigo Bentancur, 8s all round from us, and it's coming a common theme now with Bentancur. No matter if you play him in a 3, you play him in a 2, he's putting in these carbon copy performances week in, week out now. Really strong displays, energetic displays, aggressive displays, even getting on the goals on the score sheet as well with a lovely header rising above the keeper. But he was non-stop at it throughout the whole game. Like I said before when I was talking about Romero, he was definitely one of the shining lights in that first half, him and Romero. And in the second half, he kept at it, and the team actually joined him in the application and desire, and he was really good box-to-box role, winning the ball back quite a number of times in the midfield and also contributing to the attack going forward. So really good display. Yeah,
I thought positionally, especially in the second half, once we were suffocating Sporting, he was spot on every time. Every time Sporting were playing long balls into the attackers, he was there to cut them out and intercept and get Tottenham to start on the attack again. He was being so super aggressive. I'm so impressed with how many times he's able to nick the ball off opponents and set Tottenham off the attack during the 90 minutes. And I remember, I think in the 90th minute he did it, and it led to, unfortunately, to his own missed chance, which he'll be disappointed that he ended up blazing over the bar. Really good opportunity just on the edge of the box, laying off from Brian Hill, lays it off to him. He couldn't turn it away, and that would have been 2 goals for him. But such a shame he couldn't get the goal. He did get a goal though, and you can't really expect more than 1 goal in a game from Bentancur, to be fair. So fair play to him for getting on the score sheet, and fair play to him from starting attacks and really driving the team on. He was also involved in the chance which Dyer had, that swivel volley which forced a good save on the keeper. He was the one charging forward into the penalty area and forcing that issue. So some really good stuff from Bentancur, and again another shining light in the game.
Yeah, which moves us on to Ivan Perisic. Sim gives him a 7, I gave him a 6. I thought in the first half I expected a bit more from him. There were a couple of crosses in the box, but there was not much in it like it was for the majority of our team, to be honest. In the second half, I thought he came alive a little bit. He was getting down that left-hand side, getting good balls in the box. Obviously, his corner resulted in a goal that got us back into the game. And I thought he did provide positively for the team. Some of his crosses were a bit too long and stuff like that, but definitely better than what I've seen in previous weeks after I've been talking about him quite a bit this week.
Yeah, first half I felt like, especially in the opening exchanges, that he looked like our biggest threat. He played a nice through ball to Harry Kane, who had a nice shot across the face of goal, which the keeper saved in the first half. And he was the one finding space. Unfortunately, we didn't really take advantage of it, and that led obviously to Sporting getting control, and obviously they took the lead in the end. For the last bit of the first half, he wasn't great. Second half, I thought he was a much more of a threat. It was quite interesting because with 20 minutes to go, when Gil came on, it seemed as though Session was going to come on with him. He was stripped off, ready to come on, and for I don't know what reason, but Conte decided against it. He decided to keep Perisic on the pitch for all the world he was going to come off, and I think he rewarded his faith in him, because I think for the last 20 minutes he was one of our biggest threats. He was whipping in crosses with the left. This is where Perisic's two-footedness really comes into action, because he can go on the left, he can go on the right, and it doesn't really matter which foot he's crossing it in with. He's as deadly with either one, and I think he was spamming some really good crosses into the box in the last 20 minutes. As you say, got the corner, also got the cross in, which the goal came in stoppage time, which got ruled out as well to Emerson. That was also a really good cross. He had a cross to Doherty, which had the shot, which was saved. So he was getting a few crosses in the box, which were causing Sporting all kinds of problems. But unfortunately, we couldn't take full advantage of it. But I think he ended the game very strongly.
Yeah, he did. Which moves us on to Lucas Moura. Falls all around from us, and it was just a classic frustrating Moura performance, to be honest, on that right-hand side. He was getting the ball a lot, trying to beat his man every time. He showed a lot of energy, but ultimately his lack of link-up play with anyone on the pitch, to be honest, was very frustrating. There was good link-up play from Kane and Son to tee him up in the first half, where he looked like he was going to take it round the keeper. That didn't happen. In the second half, he had a chance to play the ball into the box, but instead he took a shot from an acute angle, and probably it was a better option to play the pass, where we probably could have scored from that action. But it was just frustrating, very frustrating. Time and time again, he was getting the ball and losing it, or with a lack of quality.
Yeah, I thought he improved slightly in the second half once he went a bit wider. And he was finding a bit more space. I think it must have been an instruction from Conte to get him a bit wider before he even went to wing back when Gil came on. He had literally one moment throughout the game I can remember where he beat a couple of players, got down the right hand side, and all he had to do was put a good cross in across the face to goal, and decided to shoot instead from a tight angle. And unfortunately, that the shot was well wide, and it was a bad decision. I thought by and large, when he was in the central areas, in the congested areas, he was running down blind alleys. He wasn't getting any joy off the Sporting defenders. He wasn't playing the pass at the right times. He was hanging on the ball for too long, and he just felt like he was in one of those moods where he had to dribble every time he got the ball and wasn't able to play a quick pass. Now, it was quite frustrating. So wasn't a great display from Lucas, and the fact of the matter is he put Lucas a wing back to force the issue, and he ended up taking him off and putting Emerson there
a few minutes later.
So that goes to show how his performance went, really.
Yeah. Let's move on to Sonny. 6 is all round from us, and I thought it was a bit of a lacklustre display from Sonny, to be honest. There was a bit of link-up play in the first half between him and Kane to put through Lucas Moura. He had an effort in the second half as well, where he probably should have done better with. And he also had a brilliant cross that found Eric Dyer, where he really should have had he should have done better. And maybe if that cross goes in from Eric Dyer, you're talking about an assist from Sonny, which it most definitely should have been. So I think apart from those actions, it was fairly anonymous.
He had some shots which didn't really have been on target, but you never really expect them to go in, did you? Which was disappointing. He had from his corners, some of them were not great. Some of them did cause some trouble. There was one which I remember he flashed in with Dyer winning a header at the near post, which went on top of the bar. That was a decent corner. Obviously, his free kick, which led to another Dyer chance later in the game, was brilliant. That was a brilliant cross in, and just begging to be headed in, and unfortunately we couldn't oblige. but didn't really threaten that in a way that we know Son can. Occasionally he did on the counter, but didn't really create any big opportunities for himself or get any serious shots off from positions where you think he could score from. So that was disappointing, but it wasn't totally useless from Son. He did some good things.
Yeah, definitely. And last of the starting 11, Harry Kane. Sim gives him a 7. I gave him a 6. And I thought that with the little good work that we did do in the first half, he was central to a lot of it that we did. He played that ball through to Lucas Moura. He had a chance himself in that first half as well. Second half, I think he improved quite a bit. Obviously got that goal right at the end, which whether you think it should stand or not, he was the one that put it in the net. And I thought he was trying to pull the strings in that second half, but not as to a high quality as he usually does.
Yeah, I think he was decent. I think in general, again, his link-up play was really good. Again, first half, he was playing some really nice passes out wide to Perisic and Doherty in the spaces in the wing-back. Again, we didn't take full advantage of those situations, which is becoming a common theme. But then second half, I think, again, he's playing a good bit of a playmaker role, as we know Kane does. Didn't really have too many attempts at goal, apart from maybe one in the first half. So that'll be disappointing to him. A lot of the crosses swung in. He wasn't able to get any joy in the air, which was a problem. But he did get that. He did get the goal right at the end. It was actually quite a good finish when you look at it, but unfortunately didn't count. So can't give him credit for it.
And only substitute that we're going to rate is Bryan Gil. 7s all round from us, and he came on with such an energy, such a desire. I thought that he provided for the team so positively that our chance creation went up so massively when he came on, and he was a central figure to it. I mean, the Sporting Lisbon players didn't really know what to do with him. I mean, he was so he was full of the trickery, full of speed, full of energy. Didn't really get muscled off the ball too much as well. So a really good cameo for Bryan Gil.
Yeah, I think he was a bright spark, and he allowed us to keep the energy levels high. He allowed us to pen Sporting in. He was quite threatening with some of his in-swinging crosses as well for the left-hand side. He also good winning some free kicks and corners, which led to set-piece situations, which we were quite dangerous from, I thought, yesterday, and obviously allowed us to get back in the game. So a good cameo from Bryan Gil again in the Champions League, and positively impacted the team. So I was happy with him.
And let's move on to the manager, Antonio Conte. Sim gives him a 6. I gave him a 7. Poor first half, we got to say that. Lack of energy, lack of desire, lack of creation. Second half, he must have got into them really hard at half time, because they came out with an absolute point to prove. And you got to give credit to Antonio for providing that motivation for them. And I thought he made changes as well in a positive light. We're bringing on Bryan Gil. I know he brought on Emerson, but that's by the by. But I think that on another day, if we do get those goals in the second half like we deserved, you're probably talking about a positive managerial game management from Antonio Conte. But the goal didn't come, but I don't think that's down to Conte.
Yeah, I don't blame him, and I give him a lot of credit for the second half performance, because I thought we were brilliant. The pressure was really there. We literally gave Sporting very, very little. They did create a couple of counter-attacks, but look, I'm happy that Conte was actually throwing a bit of caution to the wind in that second half and allowing us the opportunity to get forward and create the chances that we did. Set pieces as well. Gianni Villa, I think, is still doing his magic, because I think we looked really dangerous from set pieces in general. And
Am I right in saying that we've scored the most set pieces in the league or something?
I think so. I believe so. We do tend to get a lot of goals from set pieces, so I think you might be right there. I think someone said that recently, but yeah, I thought he did brilliantly. But I have to mark him down for the first half, and these first half performances kind of are a recurring theme. All these periods in games, and he has to take responsibility. And the fact that we can't work out why they keep happening and why we can't sustain these levels. Or why we're struggling when we do have to drop back a bit is down to Conte. So he has to work out some solutions. But the second half performance was brilliant, deserved to win, and it was unfortunate. I think, I'll probably give him a mark up if that goal counted. Unfortunately, it didn't. And now we have to go to Marseille next week and get something, so that's a bit disappointing.
Yeah, and obviously he got sent off as well. For being very angry. I mean, I'm not sure why he got sent off, because there were so many other people on the pitch as well, but is what it is, and now he's not going to be on the sidelines for the next game. Apparently he's not allowed to speak to his players in the dressing room or anything like that as well, so it's going to be very difficult out in Marseille. but I'm sure Ryan Mason and Stellini can do a great job. But that is our player ratings. Let us know in the comment section below what you thought of our ratings, and also put your ratings in the comment section below. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.